Well, the French government has held a crisis meeting as wildfires ravage parts of southwestern France. The fires across France and neighbouring Spain have forced more than 300,000 people to evacuate, with another heatwave forecast this week expected to complicate emergency efforts. Victor Resco de Dios is a professor of forest science at the University of Lleida, and he joins me now. Victor, good to have you with us today and really appreciate your time. What is the situation firstly there in Spain where you are, and which are the hardest hit areas?
Hi, thanks for having me. So, the situation in Spain right now is that we're sort of making the transition that Australia made in 2019, with the fire season of 2019 to 2020. So we've been going from declining burn area until 2019, 2020. And after that, we've seen a dramatic increase in burn area. And this is because we have a sustained increase in the intensity of the fires. It has increased between 30 and 40% the intensity of fire season in Spain over the last few decades. Right now, we're having fire complexes which are approaching hundreds of thousands of hectares. The one in Madrid is approaching 100,000 hectares, and this is something unheard of for Spain. The record fire that we had so far, it was about 42,000 hectares, and that was last year. But before that, we used to have, fires between 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 hectares. So we are really seeing an increase in the intensity of the fires. The blazes are getting bigger, and essentially the energy that these monsters are emitting is comparable to different atomic bombs. I mean, we've measured with some of our satellites the energy that they're emitting. For the fire near Madrid, the energy that it's emitting is equivalent to that released by 25 Hiroshima atomic bombs. And that's just the beginning. That's just a taste of what's going to come under climate change.
Yes, and I was going to ask you, now that you say that these are perhaps the worst fires that Spain has experienced, and there's increasing frequency, what role has climate change played in this regard?
So the situation in Spain, in that sense, has many parallels with Australia, because in Australia we see that after Aboriginal burning ceased, there was an increase in the growth of the fuel, and growth in the biomass available for the fire, and that has been exacerbated by climate change. In Spain, it's a very similar situation, not because of Aborigines, of course, but because of rural abandonment, because people have been fleeing, they have been moving from cities, from towns and villages to the cities. And so there has been a big increase in fuel loads, in fuel connectivity. And what this means is that fires now, they can eat as much as they want. They do not die from starvation anymore, as they could die maybe 50, 60 years ago, when we had our landscapes that had which were managed with lots of goats and lots of activity, rural activity, which was able to prevent the spread of these megafires.
Yes, and we're looking at pictures of firefighters who are trying to put out the blaze. How difficult are conditions for firefighters there to be able to put out these fires?
So the thing is that when the blazes emit more than 10,000 kilowatts per meter, the fire is out of capacity. What does this mean? So if we imagine a small household appliance, a small heater that we could have in our homes, that's about 2 kilowatts. So now imagine having 5,000 of those in a single meter of the fire front, and then multiply that by the fire front. In the worst case scenarios, because we're now having blazes that burn thousands of hectares in a matter of minutes, in these cases we're talking of 150,000 kilowatts per meter. So we're talking 75,000 small heaters within a meter of the front. So there's nothing we can do to combat these fires. The only way we can fight these fires is by preventing them, meaning that we should manage the fuel, do more prescribed burns, extensive livestock, recover many farms, because this is increasingly a civil security problem. In Spain, in Europe, we have more people dying from fires than from terrorist attacks. The fire that is now in the outskirts of Madrid, if it would happen a bit closer to Madrid or in the outskirts of Barcelona, we're talking of hundreds of thousands of people potentially affected in a blaze with traffic's collapsing, really strong emergency issues. And that's the situation where we're facing right now. We're on our way to suffering fires that could reach 1 million hectares, like the Mount Gospers fire in Australia, which eventually became a complex fire of this size. No? So in areas of Spain, like the Pyrenees and some other mountain regions, we are on our way to seeing what you have experienced in southeastern Australia recently, unfortunately.
Yes. Victor, how concerning is it that this heat wave conditions are expected to continue over the next week, not just for Spain, but also in neighbouring France?
Right. I mean, the fire season has barely started in a way. I mean, we've had a very early start this year since June. This has put a lot of strain into our fire suppression teams. Fire suppression teams, I mean, they have been on the brink. They have been on the brink of collapse. And so essentially what this means is that they have to do triage. There are some places where they can go to, and then there are some places where they cannot go to. This means that some people, some towns, they cannot be assisted by fire suppression teams because there's not enough of them, and they're on the brink of collapse. Now, traditionally, we would be switching from fires in the Mediterranean region, which usually happen at the beginning of the summer, to fires in the northwestern part of Spain, above the region above Portugal. And this region in Portugal and also in northwestern Spain, here we've traditionally had our fires in August. And these are traditionally also the biggest fires than we've had. So the worst of the fire season is probably about to come, but of course this is going to depend on weather. We could start having rains and that could stop, but we could have the opposite case, and that could be dry storms. If we have dry storms, this could create really bad conditions. This is what happened last year in 2025, in August 8th. We had an episode with dry lightnings, and that meant that we had lots of fires at once. The perimeter that the fire suppression teams had to work on was over 1,000 hectares for some regions in Spain. I mean, no firefighting teams can deal with that in the world. So this is the situation that we are now, and the situation that we're heading, unless we start managing our fuels.
Yes, and talking about managing fuels and other mitigation efforts, Victor, of course, heat waves and wildfires don't respect national boundaries. Are there sort of like cross-border efforts across the countries, like you mentioned, Portugal, Greece, Spain, France? Are there sort of, cross-border efforts to perhaps work together to mitigate the impacts of these fires?
So the European Union has a civil protection mechanism. And after the wildfire season of 2017, because in Portugal in 2017 we had over 100 fatalities, after that fire season, they enhanced the capabilities of this program. They call it the Resco EU program. But essentially what that means is that there's more aerial means. It increased their cooperation in terms of planes, helicopters, so more resources for fighting the blazes. But that's not enough. I mean, there's this thing called the fire paradox. It was described in California in the 1980s. And what that is telling us is that if you only invest in putting out fires, if you don't invest in managing your fuels, you're just making the fire program longer and worse. You're making the fire program worse because you are having every time more and more energy concentrated into biomass. And of course, then you have all the energy in the atmosphere that's drying out because of climate change. This is worsening the problem. But the EU has been focusing on responding to the emergency, and it should be focused on solving the emergency, on minimizing the negative impacts of the emergency, mitigating it, so managing the fuels. And there have not been enough efforts on this area, not at all.
Okay, Professor Victor Resco de Dios, we really do appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.